So Jamie is she's a managing principal of the Zweig Group, and Zweig Group is the people we've been interacting with them for, I think like a beginning of like 2001 or two or something. First time I met the Mark Zweig at the bar in San Francisco downtown. That's how we started actually. And so Mark Zweig has been just incredible mentor to us many years. But he just recently changed his involvement in the company. And Jamie, she actually took over. And so Mark was also our one of our board of directors for many years. And now that Jamie is our one of our board of directors today. And she actually gave us just incredible insights. And I think what's make you guys really special is you see things going out there. So you see the best practices, worst practices, normal practices. That kind of information is so critical, so we don't have to fall into the so-called errors people making it. That's over the years. I think Zweig Group has been so helpful. I think, it's kind of give us the benchmark that we can compare with. So I'm personally really proud of the fact is actually Jamie chose us to be in the board of directors, and she actually volunteered to be talking to us now. I mean, that's pretty incredible. You are wanted. You're like, you are wanted by all those great companies, out there. And so we're very honored to have you here. Thank you, Jamie. I'm so
Thank you.
appreciative of that. So, Jamie, Claire Kiser.
Awesome. So I'm gonna share my screen, but I'm not gonna do it in presenter mode, so I can still see everybody, if that's okay.
Sure,
can you see my other screen visibly enough? Just send a chat if you can't, and I'll zoom in on it. But I'm kind of tired of not being able to see the people I'm talking to, which is, I don't know, on Zoom meetings. So I did volunteer to speak. That is true. However, what I volunteered to speak about was like AR collection. And some Kit sort of changed that discussion a little bit. And now I'm here talking about keys for working with people. So
and leadership.
Yeah, I'm not sure what personality challenge that is there, but here we are. No, I thought this would be a great topic for us to discuss today. And I hope it's interactive. It's a good group size. And, there's a lot of these, if you're Zoom meetinged out like I am, I really hope that y'all take the time to jump off mute and talk and interact. And if you don't want to talk, that's fine. Send a chat and, just participate in the conversation. So keys for working with people, teamwork, and leadership. And maybe some AR collection if we get around to it. I'm kidding. Please don't leave. So the first thing I wanted to touch on is how much the employee experience really drives the client experience and why those are one discussion and why it's so important to think about both of them in the same breath. It is one experience that is translated into different ways. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is I wanted to turn it back over to you all. I want you to please describe the client experience at Miyamoto. What is that?
Come on, Jeff.
Thank you. You want me to go first?
Yeah.
I would say the client experience at Miyamoto is a very interactive, very interdependent, positive experience for the most part. We tend to want to really partner with our clients. We don't tend to congregate towards the people that we do work with that treat us as consultants. We like to work with the people that treat us as partners, where we provide some value, and we work closely together with them, and we see good results because of that. And I think when we have the other, we don't get the good results. It's generally not a good project at the end of the day, and it's not a good experience for our staff, and I think for their staff as well. So that's kind of it in a nutshell from my perspective. I'm happy to hear what everybody else thinks too.
Sean, what do you think? I mean, you are just working for a big company, right, Sean? Like KPF and all that. Now it's different. So how do you see the differences, if any? I think you're on a mute.
I think we're the biggest small company around. It's as far as our responsiveness and our nimble attitude towards clients, I think it really sets us apart. And we as Jeff said, I think we really are team members to our clients, and we do a lot of design build work. So that team nature and value sort of extends to all parties. This is the owner, the builder, the architect, all of the team members.
What about something negative? Has to be negative. It can't be perfect. Anyone has some negativeness we do?
I'll take that one. I do see that there's still plenty of architects out there that are using us for a number, and that's a little bit frustrating.
Yeah.
So when that happens, I try and come back to them and say, well, what can we do, you know, to improve our number or to make you feel that, you know, we're going to be the resource that you need, that you want. Don't just treat us like a number. I mean, I don't just accept that. When someone wants a number, I always push back on them and kind of dig a little deeper rather than just, hey, here you go. Because it takes time and it takes effort to generate those things. It's not like we have a 8-ball that says, oh yeah, this project's this number. You know, it's exhausting coming up with a reasonable number that you can stand by.
That is like the perfect segue to our next discussion about brand loyalty. Absolutely perfect. So brand loyalty is really just when your clients buy from you because they love you, not because of price, not because of convenience. That is true brand loyalty. And it really starts with the people. And if you can describe what your culture is, what your employee experience is, and what your client experience is, you're one step closer to that brand loyalty that's so important. And it's not just for the client, it is for the employees, and it really starts with the people. You know, people that are empowered, consistent, and see how their role really translates to that experience that you were describing, you want your clients to feel. You know, going through this, just thinking about everybody in the company and what they can do from their vantage point to have that consistent, aligned experience from every single stage of the project. It really starts with authentic relationships, which is organizational alignment, knowing who does what, who's in charge of what. Information infrastructure, everyone is able to get the same information in real time to do their job. And communication and cooperation have to be key to that. It's really building that relational preference versus the transactional. We can't just be a number. We have to be part of the team. I mean, truly, if that's what we're about and that's what we want our experience to be. So thinking through some of those authentic relationships and some of the words here that, you know, a lot of companies will use when they're talking about what it means to have that authentic relationship. And that's really when you get to push back, right? Like when you're part of the team, you have an equal say. You're not just taking orders. You know, when you are able to provide your own thought leadership, how much that really helps the client and the project overall, and how much more fun it is. It's so much more fun when you can just be yourself and be awesome all at the same time. So I thought to connect this to the employee experience, we would do an exercise. So stop what you're doing, grab a pen or I guess your phone, and identify 3 people in the firm that you work really closely with. So people you talk to a lot day to day. And then write down 2 things you know about them that are not related to a project or directly to your work. And your homework assignment is going to be to find a way to connect with those people, somebody there on one of those items before the end of the week, which is tomorrow. So think about what you can do to have a conversation you might not normally have. And I mean, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about communication because it has just changed so much during this whole thing that we're all dealing with this year. But the more touch points that you can have with your staff as humans that have nothing to do with, you know, needing something from them or needing to communicate something to them, the more you can build that brand loyalty with your colleagues and coworkers. Does anybody want to share one of these things? Get their homework assignment done?
Come on, Tim. You have something to say. I see you there. Maybe he's not there.
Maybe he's in the bathroom, like you were saying earlier. So now let's talk more about the impact of COVID on teamwork. This is I mean, tough year for everyone to be part of a team. I don't need to tell anyone that. And I think just going through some of the data, hopefully will give you all better insight into what the rest of the industry is dealing with. You all participated in our Best Firm to Work For study this year. We got 1.7 million data points out of that study, all from AEC firm employees across the country. So these are things that are actually trending up this year, which is really, some of these might be surprising, but things that have been improving over time are effective communication, firm-wide financial information, ethical business practices, and telecommuting. Perception of how your companies are doing in the industry actually on the upside. So that's great to see, right? But at the same time, we've got some trends that are going downward. So we see that staff are less satisfied with their work experience. They're less satisfied with fairness and consistency in policies and decisions. And management showing compassion in times of need, trending down as well. So is job security. Did any of those surprise you?
I have one. I would say the management showing compassion in times of need surprises me because I feel like everyone's been really accommodating, at least here, and I would expect it to be the same in other firms. Because
I was surprised by that one too. Yeah,
we're all dealing with the same issues, so it's not that hard to be compassionate for someone else's.
I agree. I was surprised to see that trend as well.
Well, Jamie, because of the other many of the firms did the pay cuts and a furlough, layoff, that kind of stuff. That will definitely affect it for sure for that kind of trend.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We also looked at, so we have had a live survey on COVID impacts on policies. And this has been interesting to watch how that's changed over time. Looking at the remote staff abilities and how open firms are to letting people work remotely. I just thought this was so interesting. It's like I was actually with a firm last week. I still have to travel a lot as a consultant, which is lovely. I'm just going to be quarantined for 2-week periods for the rest of my life at this point. But I was with a firm last week that their number one thing is they're dying to get people back in the office. They do not feel like they can foster the mentoring that they think is so important until they have people where they can see them, which is fine. To me, it's just so odd because I don't see how physical proximity is really tied to effective communication and, the kind of feelings of this person that cares about my career and is investing their time and energy with me. I was surprised that those things are so closely connected for this company. But, as you can see from the data here, people are still trying to get back to the office.
What would be a percentage of people going back to the office, you think, industry-wide?
I do not know. I don't know the answer to that one.
Jamie,
I know there's a lot of people that are really, really excited about getting everybody back in the office, which seems, again, like I'm not sure why that is ever the goal, right? Is that to achieve something else? And is there another way we could achieve that goal? Is that actually the challenge?
Yeah.
There's just no way. That's not the right diagnosis. It can't be.
Yeah. But it's to build the relationship, I think that being a proximity to the persons are really important now. I mean, we merged with the GSSI, right? The Bill's company. And I never met them through the Zoom calls, right? So we got all the business transactions and everything went, and we got a cultural match, and we did great, But about 2 weeks ago, I drove down to San Diego, and I spent a couple hours with the staff and Bill, and it's interesting. I mean, it's this kind of, you can form this, this kind of bond with the people. At least I feel that way, just being with them, I don't think you have to commute every day to doing that, quite frankly, but I think a built relationship, this kind of physical contact components is definitely critical, but now I would say that 90% of business definitely you can do by Zoom for sure. No question about it,
I agree with that.
But I also
So
think
yeah.
people have freedom to do where they want to work, either work at the office or home or park. You know what I mean? Whatever that person, I mean, everybody's different, you know, everybody has still have a choice to make, to me, you know.
Absolutely. And I think your ability to know how productive your team is, again, if it's really tied to how physically close you are to them, you probably aren't as good of a leader as you may think you are. You know, I mean, to me, it's not about being able to see people. It's about understanding where they are and communicating with them frequently and trusting them that they're working. And you'll be able to tell if they're not, because it's really obvious when people aren't working. The other thing, I don't have this data point in here, but we were looking at firms that are fast growing and how many direct reports you have as a leader at different size brackets within your company, and looking at how, as firms grow quickly, a lot of different people who may have managed 1 or 2 or 3 staff all of a sudden are managing 10 staff. Productivity plummets, trust plummets, people feel micromanaged, even though, I mean, they can't be, because there's more people reporting to everyone. So a lot of it has to do with that organizational structure and just knowing who reports to different people within the organization and how many people you can really have that kind of connection with, and what needs to change really as your firm grows and evolves over time and your role takes on different nuances as you're doing different things for the company. I thought that was a really interesting data point, that productivity plummets as we grow and have more direct reports. So headcount is not an efficiency metric. We also looked at how COVID is going to impact some areas of your company, like how you're going to obtain new work, train staff. These are the areas that are going to have the biggest impact that firms rated. So how do these relate with you all?
Hey, Jamie, I have a question about your prior to that, about how many people reporting to it. What would be in your mind the good size of people reporting to one person?
I want to say that I don't remember, but I think it was 6 people is like the maximum for like high achieving team productivity. That's direct reports. So people whose work, you know, all of that.
Yeah.
More than that, it really should be pushed down.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I can probably do 5 maximum. Okay, and then what was your second question again? I'm sorry.
Sure. So there's not really a question. I just thought this was interesting too. Just looking at what some of the impacts that people are having and how they're able to do work within their companies this year due to COVID. And here, this is really where I want to kind of tie back to that employee experience piece. We also asked what factors are preventing employees from being able to work effectively remotely. This one's an important one to be able to talk about, and I would encourage you to reach out to the people that you work with, you know, up and down the org chart, and really talk to them about how they're doing. You know, what are the things that are changing how they need to work? Distractions at home, you know, needing to be able to work on site, needing equipment that's hard to get out of the office, just different policies or internet issues. We've got all these people that say they have no issues. Really? A quarter of the population is thriving during COVID. I'm not sure I buy that one.
Well, what's the percentage of people have issues because of that, you know, environmental issue that they cannot do a remote, you said?
Well, according to this data point, it says 25% of people reported they don't have issues that are preventing their employees from working effectively remotely. So I think the real answer is like 100%, but maybe that's just me. It seems like everyone's had to adapt, and this is tough for a lot of reasons for a lot of different people. But I think that authentic relationship that we're talking about means you know what those challenges are for people, and that you're figuring out how to work with them and what can flex and what cannot. One of the things that we did at our company, we have people in different states, just like you all do, in different school districts. And once we realized that we were facing a situation where we had no idea half of our staff was going to be homeschooling their kids in addition to working, we formed a parents group. So all the parents in our company have a regularly scheduled parents only meeting where they kind of talk about what their challenges are and what they need from us. And we've done things like we immediately offered to speed everybody's internet up so that they were not dealing with buffering issues if their kids have to be on a Zoom call while I really need them on a Zoom call. And, it's a low budget way to make sure that people understand how critical they are to the success of the company, and that they feel that genuine investment, but also it keeps them productive. Win-win, right? What are some of the things that you've talked about on your teams?
Team, what do you think?
Were you talking challenges that we're having? Just in general?
Just discussions, yeah.
So I think in terms of just the people relationship, the face-to-face, our staff is missing some of that interaction. And we've done things to try to mitigate that, doing some sort of socially distanced lunches and things like that locally, kind of as a grassroots effort to get together. Some of the staff has participated in. I think certainly the internet challenge we've run across it at multiple levels, different people at different times kind of having that challenge. I think there's a little bit in the remote environment of not being physically there where you can see people, that you may feel like you're intruding on their time by giving them a call or texting or hitting them up on UCX or whatever it is, that you may be intruding on something that's really important at the time. So I think those are the things that I've seen most common come up concerns wise.
Those are all great. What else?
I think at the outset, Jamie, I think a lot of our staff didn't have a place to work in their home. And it wasn't just them at home, they had their family at home. So when you've got the entire family home and you're trying to find that dedicated space where the Wi-Fi works, that can be a real challenge. And then you got the dog barking. Always got the dog barking.
Speaking of that, I have a dog asleep right next to me. So if you hear a horrible high-pitched shriek, it's my terrible lap dog that I did not ever have to expecting this much of a challenge to my workday. So yeah, that's the whole thing.
Victoria, how did you work out in Mexico? It's a little bit different story there. Some internet issues and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, for me, it has been pretty easy. Well, I live by myself, so that's a big advantage. I don't have kids and I don't have a husband or someone living here. So that makes my work really easy. I can focus all day and concentrate, of course. Sometimes I have background noise from the street or something like this that will intervene with some Zoom calls or something that it's being live. But on my own, I work really well. Sometimes I have some internet issues, but it's really weird because I'm the only one using my network, my Wi-Fi. So it doesn't really happen that much. And well, with the team, we've been collaborating a lot. It didn't really change the dynamic, because, well, at the international team, development team, we are all in different places or different countries. So it has really been going the same, just emails and Skype calls or Zoom calls. So to be honest, I haven't had any issues. I feel like it's working great. And for me, my day is much more productive. I used to spend 2 hours or 2.5 hours driving to the office and then 2 hours coming back. And now those hours, I use them working. So it really...
Did you say 2 hours?
Yeah,
oh my God.
or if it's raining, it could go up to 3 hours, if it's rain. So it's a lot of hours that I can just, instead of driving, just use them, working, and then have much more things done. And also my quality of life has improved because I can sleep a little bit more also. Yeah, I can do more exercise also. So to be honest, it has been really nice.
So that the productivity piece is interesting too. I was working with a firm a couple of weeks ago that, they were feeling really isolated and frustrated. And it was actually across the organization really consistently, just feeling like they were working hard, but not smart. And I looked at their utilization, and their principal level utilization had skyrocketed. So a lot of people in leadership roles had, achieved more utilization than they have just historically over like 5 years. And at the same time, we're seeing feedback from people that work for them saying, I'm not getting any feedback. And I thought that was interesting because to me, it looks like, the story that it seems to share there is that you do work, you send it to someone and they just fix it, and then it goes out. And maybe they're not taking the time to sit down and go over, here are the things that we need to work on. Here's the stuff that you would normally do if you were near somebody. You just walk over to their desk or do something else. So I thought that was interesting, that productivity is really important, but collaborative productivity is definitely harder, I would say, giving that feedback in real time and teaching them something rather than editing it yourself and then just moving on.
I mean, that's kind of strange. So principals, their chargeability went up. That shouldn't be changes. That should be same.
Hey, Kit, I was also wondering if that has something to do with like minimized travel time, because I know at principal levels are often out at clients' offices and do travel a lot. And so that that's been one of the big things that, for me, sort of, of course, it's sort of Zoom meetings now cut out all that amount of time that I used to have traveling. So that might be a contributing factor. I'm not
that's
sure.
a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's even more to it than that. And I think that you kind of touched on it, the collaborative, mentorship. I think, we've been trying to do, as good a job as we can of mentoring the younger staff and, being there for them when they need help. And, they need a lot of help and they want collaboration. I don't think we get the informal, one person's talking to another and a couple other people in the area and they weigh in on the subject. You kind of get that collaboratively in the office. I think we've done a good job of trying to formalize, that mentoring, but it takes, Zoom calls and formalized calls. And I think that piece slows down a little bit. I think we're still able to do it. I just think we miss a little bit of it being in the office. But
yeah, it is true that we definitely missed that kind of, I used to kind of walk through the office, kind of run into someone and we start talking something, identifying certain issues, kind of started working through this kind of thing, that kind of incidental, informal things gone. For sure, everything has to kind of formalized, Zoom meetings and that kind of stuff. So
it is definitely gone, but I think with some intentional thought, you can bring some of it back. So one of the things that I've started doing, and I got the idea from a podcast from an architect that spoke on the Zweig podcast, and what he said that he was doing, so I've started doing it, is he picks 5 people from across the company that wouldn't normally work together, and he just sends them Zoom invites for half an hour for lunch or for coffee or whatever, and no agenda, no work stuff, they just talk. So he's getting people together and just chatting with them and just seeing where it goes. Define start and end time. They can opt in or opt out. No one has to be there. And he's doing it 2 or 3 or 4 times a week. I can only do that twice a week, but it's been a really effective way to make sure that those informal, just the little things, like the bump into them in the hallway things, just come up. People just start chatting and then the conversation goes. And connecting people across the organization too is really important. I thought that was a really good idea. That wasn't, that you can schedule out and have some discipline around, but it's also not overly formal. So that's something that worked for them that I just loved. I also wanted to provide a resource for you all. One of our groups in our Elevate Her cohort put together a deck of cards that's designed to support communication. And it's really cool. So if you're looking for something to do with people in the company, getting a small group together and going through some of these cards is a really good way to talk about just whatever comes up, where the conversation goes. But having a prompt sometimes can be a lot easier than just an open-ended, how's it going? So look at what they've worked on and some of the topics from burnout to culture and employee engagement. And just, I thought that was a great resource to have in your back pocket.
Right.
So the number one challenge that we've seen is communication. And we're about to get into some of those communication best practices. But I think one of the things that has suffered a lot that's hard to figure out how to fix is workplace monotony, like just the constant day in, day out, especially if you're not leaving your house, right? Like, do you find yourself getting more bored than you maybe would have when you were in the office? How can we create those opportunities for people to share just those great ideas that they have that, you know, they're not just going to happen?
Hey, Jamie.
I don't have any answers, so y'all have to participate in this one.
Jamie, one of the things that different from those companies you're talking to, this is something new for them, working remotely, working in different places. But this is something we've been doing this for many years, you know. And we actually set up the whole remote working policy and system 2019, you know. So hardware and software is kind of ready, and culture by working in different places is already been there. You know what I'm saying? So it's a little bit different kind of a perspective from those companies have a one office everybody's in and suddenly throw it into this remote virtual workplace.
Well, I mean, I feel like this discussion is relevant whether or not you're working in the same place or not, right? I mean, how can you break up your day and bring good ideas out of people?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what I miss the most, actually, quite frankly, is that having some sort of a brainstorm discussion with, could it be business, could it be engineering, could it be whatever, has a whiteboard in it, and just drawing through this and people draw over it, that kind of stuff. You know, that interactive brainstorm components. I know you can do that using Zoom and stuff, but it's a little bit different, you know. That part of it, personally, kind of missing it, you know, that parts. I miss that one.
In my experience, it has been a bit more creative for me because, as I said, I've had the time to kind of focus on work instead of, you know, arriving to the office already after 2 hours of driving and kind of, you know, you arrive at the office in a different mindset. And when I go from bed to I do some meditation, and then I have the chance to have a breakfast and sit. I really have a different approach to work, and I feel like it has been much better. Of course, I miss the interaction, you know, with my colleagues, but we've had weekly meetings here in Mexico City, and we just, you know, with no agenda. We just talk about how was our week, and it really provides a lot of this conversation that we might be missing from the office contact. But personally, it has really helped a lot for me to be, you know, just in terms of creativity and focus and just different mindset. It has been much healthier, I think.
Yeah, I think places like Mexico City or LA, you know, I mean, some people commute hours, you know, each way to kind of get to. I mean, that's like a completely different, you know, phenomenon. I mean, Sacramento is a little bit different, you know. Zach can drive for 5 minutes to get to the office, you know, stuff like that. So, so it's a lot to do with how office set up in certain cities and environment, I think, you know. I mean, daily office, Eric, I mean, it was incredible. I mean, where they commute is like unbelievable.
Right. Yeah, I was commuting at least sometimes 2 hours one way. So it was a challenge, and I was taking the metro. And so, but you know, working remotely, yes, as it does have some of the challenges or some on the technical side with internet, but I've been working remotely with India for over 4 years now. And so I was kind of used to the remote environment, and it involves a lot of communication. So if you have the tools in place, like we have the messaging for UCX, and if you're close with your team and you're still meeting and interacting with Zoom, you can still collaborate in the same ways, but it takes more effort, but it is possible.
What do you think, Eric?
Okay, you set this up so, oh, go ahead.
Prior to this, you know, India stuff was not, not allowed to use remote this way, you know what I mean? But now it's options now, at least.
I have a friend called Jay who he logs on in the morning. He logs on to he's got one Zoom account that he's assigned to. So he logs onto it, and besides his calls, he's always on the Zoom. And quite a lot of his colleagues actually end up being on the same Zoom call, and they just do their work, but sort of all can see each other on the screen, and then sometimes go into breakout groups. Sometimes they chat, but they sort of side by side work together almost all day long, him and his team. And so, that I found that was quite interesting. We're going to be utilizing that for we want to get ahead of some of our marketing collateral. And so the suggestion here is just to let's clear our schedule for a whole morning or whole day if it's possible. And let's, because most of it is independent work, it's just difficult to get to it. And so the team will be 3 of us, 4 of us will be on a call, hopefully, and kind of just work together collaboratively on it, on that item. So we'll try that out.
That's a great idea. I love that. That's really cool. I don't think I could do that every day like your friend is doing. That just gives me anxiety thinking about it. But your idea is perfect. I could do that. Define start and end time. So that's a perfect segue though to, I wanted to just go through some communication best practices. And I think that so much of the feelings of isolation and the challenges and a lot of the other, the data behind some of these other issues really boils down to communication and figuring out, I guess, what makes sense for your communication best practices internally and externally. So these are things from a presentation I actually shared internally at our company. We try to be very straightforward in our advisory services and try really hard not to use obnoxious words and just, be people that are unapproachable. We try to be white glove hospitality, but also radically friendly. It's we want to be seen that way by our clients. That's what we want our client experience to be. So I put together this communication best practices deck for that purpose. And these were kind of my 11 commandments of of good communication ideas. The first one is one of my huge pet peeves. Just write like you speak, sound like a human. Don't try to sound smart or replace words that end up making your sentence so clunky and hard to understand. Just be yourself. Cut the boilerplate. I trust you are well. No, you don't know how I'm doing, obviously, but you have something you want to relay to me. So just relay it. Let's just get to the point. Be approachable, engaging, be yourself, and just sound like a human. I don't know. This is a topic I have to deal with a lot more than I like to. Be honest, be straightforward, and be specific. If you forgot, just say so. It just totally cut to the chase. If you're not having luck with something, tell people. If you're going to miss a deadline, communicate it. That's internal and external. If we've talked about doing something and it's just unrealistic, tell the people that need to know that before we hit the deadline. Don't just hope we get there at the 11th hour. At least warn about a potential delay. People are so much more forgiving if they know about that, before they go into it. They can be part of the solution, figuring out how to get back on track. Providing a next step or expectation of a response. I mean, truly, I will follow up with you when. Just give somebody an idea of when they can hear from you rather than going dark until you can address it completely thoroughly, This one's interesting. So we, in our principals, partners, and owners survey, one of the questions that we ask, so owners of AEC firms, we ask them what they wish they knew more about prior to becoming a principal. So there's the business education, but I thought the amount of stress and time it takes was interesting. And I thought by far the most relevant one was emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and communication, all grouped together. That's a lot. And I think I wanted to share that because I think there's often, no one's got this figured out. We're all just trying to figure out what we're supposed to do and kind of bumbling through it. And I think the more grace we give ourselves with figuring out how to be the kind of leader that we now have to be, whether you're leading a project, a team, an initiative, a phase of a project, I think a lot of people assume other people are better at it than they are. And we're all faking it out there. Another one I thought was important is just did you reach out or did you call somebody? I think just being very specific in how you communicate is especially important right now. If I ask somebody who works for me to call someone, I mean call them. I don't mean send them an email. it's probably like a millennial thing, but a lot of my fellow millennials tend to use the phone as like the last resort to make phone calls, phone for a lot of other things. But there's just so much to like talking that you cannot possibly get unless you're going to do that. I also just don't like business speak. Being specific is so important. Opportunity is like one of my trigger words. I hate when people have an opportunity for me. Is it an opportunity for me or you? Do you have an idea for me? Is there something you think I could benefit from? Opportunity, I put, is it a timeshare? Like what is this opportunity? It just sounds so silly to me. And I'm just really, I think being straightforward helps everyone understand urgency, but also just how we want to communicate. Email is not the only form of communication. And this is tough now. And the sentiment that I think Tim shared about not feeling awkward maybe or intrusive while we're trying to be more flexible with people and trying to make sure that we're giving people the distance and the space and not just like consuming all of their energy all of the time. I do think it's harder now to pick up the phone because I feel like we're so embedded into people's lives, you know, since they're working from the place that they eat and sleep. So I think this one's actually a new or evolving challenge. This is where email will fail you when you are acknowledging sentiment. So when you get an email or a text that pisses you off, you know, or do you sit there and stew on it and like write a response 15 times before sending it? And would your life maybe be easier if you just picked up the phone and asked them what's going on and let them talk? I encourage the people on my team, if they get something that just seems out of the blue or jarring, you know, if it's not the communication they were expecting and they have a reaction to it, just start by asking what's going on, how can they help? Just pick up the phone, see if you can catch the person who sent it before you spend so much of your energy, you know, up in your head about, you know, this person's such a jerk or just whatever, you know. Picking up the phone can solve so many challenges that words that are typed in an email create for us. What do you all think about this one?
Jamie, I'll chime in on that. I often think about how people are so awful on the freeway because they're insulated by their vehicle. But would they act that way if they were just walking past someone on the street? You know what I mean? Like when you can actually see people and they're vulnerable, we treat them so much differently than when we have that buffer. And I think that the email is the buffer. And it just allows people to breeze past and cut people off without thought. And then you kind of regret it later when you get in that car crash because that email can be resurrected and used against you.
That is such a great analogy. I love that.
I couldn't agree more with that thought. I mean, you know, email is email, but you know, if in my thought, if I'm calling somebody, I want to talk to them. I don't want to email them. And, you know, if anybody calls me, I never email them back. I always call them back. And if they can't take my call, they'll call me back. And, you know, I'm sure they wanted to talk to me. Otherwise they wouldn't have, you know, they would have emailed me if they wanted to email me. And, you know, you get so much more out of a conversation. So, you know, you can share a lot of information with email, but, you know, it has its time and its place. So, you know, don't be afraid to talk to people. You get a lot more back that way.
I will couch that. You are talking about engineers.
Well, that's why I'm making a point of it. Because exactly what Jamie Claire said is so true, you know, and you know, even our UCX messaging, you know, even if we're in the office, I know there are people in sitting cubicle by cubicle that will message each other rather than look around the corner and talk to each other. So there's a lot of value in that, you know. You know, I think the best thing about our company is the people that are in it, you know, and well, why would we not spend more time talking to each other? It's just, I get so much out of every conversation with everyone. It's just so valuable, you know, maybe not to solve this engineering problem or this business problem or that, but, you know, just to advance our place in life. You know, it's so good. And that's the thing I miss.
So to the point about the engineers, I found this resource a lot because I'm a huge introvert. At the first start of COVID, when I had colleagues that were just going absolutely nuts, I was living my best life. I absolutely loved not being bothered and being able to just get so much work done. And I had to be really empathetic to the extroverts. But I found this resource online about inclusive meetings, and I thought it was so helpful. If you've read the book Quiet, Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking, it is a really good book, but there's also a whole online community that has awesome resources for how to communicate with introverts and extroverts. And I've had to adjust how I communicate, because for me, I do not have the same, I don't really miss people. So I have to really work hard to pretend that I miss that stuff. I love the people I work with, but I genuinely do not need it as much as my extroverted colleagues. So I've tried to learn how to be more inclusive in my own meeting style, especially now that it's virtually, and trying to engage. But I thought this was just a phenomenal resource. So I put it in the chat here. Can you all still see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So similarly, asking people, how do you like to be communicated with? Is that something that you know the answer to with your colleagues, or have you just kind of felt it out over time? One of my coworkers, one of my extroverted coworkers, asked me that when he started working here at our company. And I was like, I've literally never been asked that by somebody in their first week. Just how should I communicate with you? And I thought that was such a great question. And I've started incorporating it into our first week thing, you know, like getting to know somebody. How do you like to be communicated with? And learning about people that have panic attacks if they get an email from me or a text saying, can you talk? Which, like, I know now that I say it out loud how stupid that is. Of course, everyone's going to panic. But just figuring out how people want to communicate is such a simple thing to do if we ask. I'm also really big into handwritten notes. I've sent a lot of handwritten notes through this period. I think it helps with that human touch, and just helps people know that we're thinking about them, you know, even if we're not there. So I don't know what other little things you've done to help stay connected, but these may seem small, but again, empowered employees who feel like they're part of a culture and feel like they're part of something bigger are going to represent your company better in all respects. They're going to be ones that are helping you recruit, and helping you delight your clients, and having fun at work too, right? So finding any little thing that lets you touch like the people that you're working with in a way that keeps them, I don't know, excited, energized and creative, I think is really worth it. Certainly worth the effort of sending them a note in the mail instead of an email. So one of the things we also looked at, I thought was interesting. We asked, what is the most important thing your firm could do to improve project management? And I thought this was interesting because of the gender gap, actually. This is not where we didn't ask a female PM or a male PM, but when we took the data and looked at it differently, we try to look at our data based on demographics as well as just, you know, solid response. And I thought this one was interesting, that female project managers are looking for more leadership training as the ¡1 thing they think their company could do to improve their project management. While male project managers are like, well, just go hire more people. Like, well, yeah, so I guess that's one way to do it. I don't know, that one just cracked me up. And then we also asked about the biggest fears. And I thought this one was interesting too. And I just had to put this up here because, you know, I don't get to share this stuff that often, but 0% of female project managers would say their biggest fear is difficulty meeting the budget or the time goal.
It's going to be biased.
They're not worried about that. They're fine. They'll meet the project goals. And another thing too, that just sending out, to me, if you're going to have meetings, especially now in this age of Zoom meetings, I feel like I'm going from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting, and it's hard for me because I like to be really prepared, and I like to have time to process, you know, what I'm going to be talking about rather than being put on the spot, especially in front of a camera. And so just thinking about what you can do to have more effective communication, especially if you're going to be demanding the kind of undivided attention that Zoom requires. Whereas on a phone call, you know, you can pace, you can pull things up, you can, you know, lean in close to your computer while you're looking at something. So just thinking about what you can do to be more efficient as you're having these meetings. How do you like to be communicated with? But then also, here are your expectations. If you don't have to be on this, don't be on this. Go do something else that you're invited to join. And those are the types of things I thought that would be helpful as we're trying to figure out how to be good colleagues and teammates and humans during this time.
Very good. Thank you, Jamie. Any other people have any kind of questions or comments?
It's a good discussion.
I'm sure Tracy has some kind of comments.
Hey, Kat. I have a few comments, actually.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Hey.
So regarding first of all, we talked a bit about connectivity issues. I think what you can improve on is our server. So when I connect from Lebanon, it's really slow. But usually the internet is fast, but anytime there's the server, it's slow. So that's the first thing that I wanted to note. Second thing is we were kind of talking about like how like COVID, like communications with the COVID. And I think especially in Lebanon, it's very different when you have a communication on the phone or in person. So when you're in person, you just get much more trust from anyone you talk to. So, and I think that's very important. So yeah, that's it.
Tim or Jeff, you want to address his first comments about server speed?
Can I kick that one to Tim? I think we'd have to get GNT involved. Yeah, well, we should take that comment to heart because if you're having a problem, we're having a problem. So let's we'll kick that up at the IT meeting Thursday.
Yeah, I think for Carl, there's a little bit of the net extender through international that he's having some trouble with. So we should probably definitely talk with GNT about how to, if there's anything we can do and what that would look like.
Yeah, and if there's a different solution than what we're doing, that might be another avenue too.
And I think it's just when I use the internet, it's just really fast. But anytime it's to the server, and I think there's a previous issue even from Sacramento, like it's considerably slower when we're using the server. So I don't know if we can do something.
Pretty well for me. So
we'll take a look, Carl.
Yeah.
Yeah, marketing has this issue quite often because we work in InDesign and our files are often quite large with graphics. So anytime we're working on a proposal and, we're usually in a time crunch and it'll take sometimes 15, maybe 20, 30 minutes to export a simple file. And for us, we're always on the go. There's a new deadline here, a new deadline there. We got to get something out, but we run into that problem quite often. But I feel like it's getting worse than it's getting better for us on this end. So we try to pre-plan or maybe have somebody else on the team try to export something if it's working better on their end. And the three of us have pretty good internet connection. So it's something that we do for us. I don't know, we need to definitely look into it.
Yeah, I have a gigabit connection here, which is like literally I can download a gigabyte a second, supposedly. But when I'm on the network, it takes me a few seconds just to load images. So it's been a problem, Carl. Yeah, we're aware of it. I've moved a lot of things just off the server into the cloud just because I don't like dealing with it. Like our images, we moved, to like a hosting online photo company. So things like that. But I definitely agree with you, Carl. It is an issue.
All right, Tim and Jeff can look into it and get back to you guys. All right, Tim and Jeff can look into it and get back to you guys. Jamie, are there any questions or comments to Jamie or to anyone?
Just on the, marketing in here, we work collaboratively with all the different offices. And so for us, working from home isn't really any different because we have to work with all of them. So we're not in a central location other than when we're in LA or in Orange County. So working with them didn't change anything, but I have to say the work-life balance is definitely better. My daily commute to LA was, anywhere from say an hour 15 to an hour and a half a day, depending. And so I feel like I have more time at home, have a proper workout schedule, have more time with the kids. And, if there are deadlines that are coming in, I can take a break in the middle of the day and then jump back later on, but for us, it's totally worked. I know between the three of us, we try to talk twice a day and we actually FaceTime with each other between Sherry, Ani and I, rather than Zoom, we FaceTime each other, we'll have either a coffee break or something, ask how our deadlines are going that day, if they need any help with anything, and I feel like they know, we've always known each other, but I feel like they know me better on a personal level. And I know them better on a personal level. You know, again, we go back to like the emails. I prefer talking to people versus sending an email, because the email always can come out very direct. You know, I was told by somebody, she told me, like, if you have to send out an email and you need to get the point across, but you don't want to be mean and you need to reread it, she says, read it in your most meanest, pissed off voice. And, and read it to yourself. And then if it sounds like, whoa, I don't sound very nice right now, then you need to retract that email and not send it out at all. You know, so that's really helped me on this end, because sometimes I'll just send a really quick direct email, like, I just need this, you know. So we've been trying to more call people and, you know, collaborate over the phone versus here's just the email that we need from you guys. But yeah, that was just my part, what we've been kind of doing on this end here. But yeah, like we said, Miyamoto's done really great with everyone working from home. We haven't really had much issues other than the solar.
All right, I think top of hour. So Jamie, you want to say something at the very end before we get going?
No, is this when we get to do the AR talk, or? Thank you guys for having me. I hope that this was interesting. Our conference is going on still. We've got, I think, 3 more weeks of it. So we are putting out content that people like usually have to pay thousands of dollars and get on an airplane for. And we're putting it out for free. And if there's a session that, you know, you're interested in, send me an email, but take advantage of this. This is crazy. I sure hope we don't have to do this conference for free ever again. But while we're making the best of it. And it's a good opportunity to invest in yourself and just, you know, expose yourself to different conversations. And I would just encourage you, there's so many other free conferences too, not just ours, but I'm really proud of the one that we're putting on. And I would just encourage you to take advantage of that while you can. All the sessions are available to rewatch. So it's okay if you weren't able to join anything live, if there's anything you're interested in. So, oh, and we will be doing a virtual doodle party, right? Right? Yeah. I'm excited about that.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
That's all I got.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Jamie, Claire.
Thank you.
Jamie.